everybody. This is Beebe Book Buzz, our virtual version, coming to you from our houses. We're very excited to be here today to be able to share our usual programming with you virtually. We will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website. Our YouTube channel is just Beebe Library. Just search YouTube Beebe Library and you'll find us. And this will be posted there very soon, along with a lot of other programming. Today I have with me Beth Radcliffe and Alyssa Staples, and I'm Karen Stern from the, all of us are from Reference, well actually now we're from Reference and IT. And we have a little selection of books for you, all of which are available electronically in some way or another, and each person will tell you where their book is available so that you can get hold of these without having to go anywhere or order something. Okay, I'm gonna start, and the book I want to talk about today is The Bear by Andrew Kreivak. Like a lot of authors who write about the downfall of humanity, Somerville author Andrew Kreivak, in his new book, The Bear, asks us to look at the future through new eyes. But rather than viewing the try to say that 3 times fast, the post-apocalypse world as some kind of bleak, ravaged, dog-eat-dog kind of Mad Max world or something from Cormac McCarthy, Kreivak gives us something a little bit that looks a little bit more like Eden. He introduces us to the last 2 people on Earth, who are a father and a daughter, who are just called throughout the book the girl and her father, who live in harmony with nature. And here comes my cat. They live in harmony with nature, which is a very pristine and abundant and sometimes harsh, given that they live in a part of the world that is very much like our own, like somewhere in, probably in the northeast of the US. So as the girl grows up, her daily lessons are how to live off the land in this kind of new, it's very beautiful. And I just want to read you a little the first page to give you kind of a flavor of the book. So the last 2 were a girl and her father who lived along the old eastern range on the side of a mountain they called the mountain that stands alone. The man had come there with the woman when they were young and built a house out of timber, stones pulled from the ground, and mortar they made with a mix of mud and sand. It was set halfway up the mountain slope and looked out onto a lake ringed with birch trees and blueberry bushes that ripened in the summer with great bunches of fruit the girl and her father would pick as the 2 floated along the shore in a canoe. From a small window in the front of the house, the glass, a gift the woman's parents had given to her after having received it themselves from the generation before, so precious a thing that it had become as a skill, so precious a thing had it become as the skill for making it was long forgotten. From that glass, the girl could see eagles catching fish in the shallows of an island that rose from the middle of the lake and hear the cries of loons in the morning while her breakfast cooked over a hearth fire. So I wanted to read that because it gives you this sense of not only the setting itself, but of the tone and the feel of the book. One of the things that I most appreciated about it is, and it was found appealing about this, was that this kind of quietly comforting atmosphere that tone gives you.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a post-apocalyptic book at all. Reading that, besides the last 2 comment, it sounds like an idyllic story of family.
Yeah, and that is certainly, even though it's a survival tale, because it really is, and honestly, this is a survival tale where the content is as harrowing, there's my word, harrowing, is as harrowing as The Martian, something like Andy Weir wrote. It's more, there's a lot that goes on, but at the same time, the feel of the book is more like an old fable or a myth or a tale it's a sort of a tale that's told to be both instructional and comforting. It's like almost like a meditation on the connection that we these days have largely lost with the world, with the natural world. So there's a lot of details here for survival in unforgiving settings. So if you like that kind of book, if you like The Martian because it taught you things about, the scientific aspect, all that sort of thing, then you might like this book for similar reasons. If you only had this on a camping trip that went wrong, you really wouldn't do too badly out of it, honestly. It's that detailed in some ways. So it's both adventure.
That didn't lag it, the pace, that didn't make the pace lag?
Well, it's so funny. It's a very small book. Like look at it. It's small and it's thin. It's only 220 pages and it's a small format. I don't know if you can tell, but so you have to like that kind of stuff. It's definitely full of that kind of stuff. It's part of the weave of the story. I'm just gonna grab her. It's both this, it's an adventure, it's also a coming of age tale. So in true to form for both of those things, there is a tragedy, and then there's later kind of enlightenment as the girl's understanding of how to live as part of nature grows. So that's how those things contribute to the storyline. Part of that learning involves the other main character of the book, who I haven't even mentioned yet, who is the bear. The bear itself, who after this tragedy befalls the girl, becomes the girl's traveling companion and her teacher and her friend. And Krivak gives us this bear who actually can communicate with the girl. They can talk. He doesn't explain that at all. And as one reviewer, Michael Patrick Brady on NPR's The Artery said, if he found himself wondering if the reader was meant to read this as like myth or reality, and he kept asking himself until finally he stopped asking himself and just realized that I was asking myself the wrong question. I'm simply meant to take it, to think on it, and to try to imagine a different way of seeing the world. So that's why in these kind of scary and uncertain times, not only do you get tips for survival, but you kind of get this very soothing feel of a meditation or a fairy tale told to you at bedtime as a child. And ultimately this feeling of hope about how humans might complete the circle of their existence on Earth. So it takes you right out of where we are now and into this other world in this very gentle rolling rhythm of the language and the setting and the physical how-tos and all that stuff. Really kind of cool little book, little interlude. I'd highly recommend it. Again, for people who like The Martian, for people who like Peter Heller, another book that I talked about once before was The River. Peter Heller wrote the book about the two guys in the Canadian wilderness, and there's a lot of similarities to that kind of thing.
That was a great book.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend it to people who like him as well. So that's, and I was gonna say, Andrew Krivak's The Bear it's available on Hoopla, both audio and ebook. And Hoopla, as you may or may not know, you don't have to wait for your titles. They're just there if you click on them. Okay.
That sounds right up my alley. I really want to read that.
Yeah, again, you have to want you have to be okay with the details, but I just found it soothing.
I loved the Peter Heller on The River. That was wonderful. Yeah. So yeah.
And I love a good post-apocalyptic. And if it doesn't make me cry, that's even better.
I don't think it'll make you cry in a couple spots, but not.
Well, I can take a good cry. Yeah. I just don't want a despondent feeling afterwards.
It's not because it's not so much about character, it's not a book. I wouldn't call it a book for people who read for character exactly. Okay. That's different for me, but it still pulled me along, and I can't get over the atmosphere of it. That just is what held me, really. Anyway, who's next?
That's great.
I am. So I don't have the physical book, but I have it is a physical book, I guess. I have the audiobook. I did not have the hardback. And the book is The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadish. It's two parallel narratives that anchor the story. There's the one that's Esther Velasquez. She's a Portuguese Jew living in 1660s London. And then the second narrative, it takes place in nowadays in London. and it's two scholars. One is Helen Watts, who's been a long time researcher and of Jewish antiquity, and then Aaron Levy, who's her assistant, who's a PhD candidate in history. So Helen finds a hidden trove of 17th century Jewish documents in a house located in a suburb of London. And she figures out that they're letters, mostly letters, from a blind rabbi, and that they were scribed because he's blind, so he had a scribe, and that the scribe was a woman, which was unheard of in those times. The scribe is Esther Velasquez, and she is the second woman from the parallel time period. Well, parallel narrative, I guess. She's an orphan, and she has been taken in by the rabbi into his small household. Her brother is actually supposed to be the scribe, but for various reasons, it doesn't pan out. So she becomes his scribe, and she loves learning. She loves the life of the mind, but she faces pressure to enter into a marriage where she would not be able to continue doing that.
Right.
So both of those women's stories are of discovery and of choices and sacrifice that the women must make in order to reconcile their lives of the heart and the mind. And the author, Rachel Caddish, she breathes life into these characters and their times. She did a ton of research. If she was going to do a scene of them eating at their house, she researched what the table manners would be like, what the utensils they used would be like, what they might have eaten. Everything. Is she really did an incredible amount of research.
Amazing.
And isn't it? And that really brings it to life by doing all that with the care. And also she does that, like, I could feel the roughness of Esther's dress versus the smooth, rich silk of the upper class women.
Right.
And when she first gets her initial view of London, because she's an immigrant to London, you can feel it, the claustrophobic feel of the London narrow streets, the darkness, because this is before the fire, which really opened it up. In Helen's world, she portrays a woman who's struggling, a female in an academic male world, and also of an older woman who's coping with her ailing health. Can you say that? Yeah, her health that is ailing. So really all of Kaddish's characters, she does a great job of portraying them, and there are numerous ones, from the learned rabbi to a friend of hers, drunken cad of an actor. They're all great. And Aaron, who I mentioned, who is the other character in this time period, he is a great foil to the two women because they're both serious and really are in their minds. And he is, while he's of the mind, he's also an American. He's kind of arrogant in that. And he's charming, and he is a ladies' man. So he's a great foil to these two characters.
Right. So it sounds like you got history and incredible descriptions. You've got character. Is there some humor in there too?
Well, Aaron provides the humor. I don't think there's a lot of humor, but he does provide that. You know, you're saying about the history. She goes into philosophy she goes into philosophy, into Judaism, into Christianity. These are women of the mind.
Right.
She goes into interfaith marriage. She goes into the existence of God. She goes into homosexuality. She goes into the fire of London that we just mentioned. She goes into the plague. And then she also has this little bit where she's in a kibbutz. One of them is in a kibbutz when Israel just started forming. And she does a great job of portraying that as well. So it's very diverse. Yeah. It's
world.
And also it sounds like there's like parallel experiences of sexism for both of the women too. So it's even like 400 years apart from one another, they're both experiencing the same levels of like, well, you shouldn't be so cerebral, you're a woman, why are you wasting your time?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly, you got that exactly. And Aaron doesn't totally get it, even though he's from our century, he doesn't totally get it. So there's a nice arc of his learning, because he really does learn and grow. And in terms of the philosophy, I don't want it to put people off. Kaddish is not a philosopher, and part of her research was learning all this philosophy. And she says she didn't come naturally to it. And I don't come naturally to philosophy.
No.
And she's able to explain it, to lay it out there so that me as a non-philosopher could really understand it. And
does she weave it into the tale? Does she make it
She does. Yes.
That's how philosophy comes to life.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And with the characters doing it, it's it's in a way I could manage through those characters. So yeah, I agree. And I should mention that it is over 550 pages.
Oh, I was wondering how she fit all of that in.
Exactly. So at that length and with those topics, she does an excellent job. I was not stagnating, I didn't whiz through it, but I did really pass through it. And I listened to it, which I think has its pluses and minuses. It's so in-depth that sometimes I like to read those things, but I think it was a great listen.
It sounds like a great escape for this time. I mean, sounds like something you can really immerse yourself in.
Well, exactly. I mean, now with most of us being stuck at home and being not having a lot to do with our times, 550 pages, so what?
It doesn't seem so long anymore, does
it? Exactly.
It just feels like a great escape.
Yeah, and the her writing, it varies for the time periods. So with Aaron, it might be very, hey guys, he's talking.
Right.
Whereas when Rachel is doing, when Esther is writing as a scribe for the rabbi, it's very formal, very flowery. And when she's writing as herself, she's still formal, not saying, hey guys, but it's language of that time. So she does that wonderfully too. And I wanted to read you just a couple of lines, a couple of sentences. This is from Helen. In her younger days, she might have ventured out, hoping against reason for warmth. Hope against reason, an opiate she'd long abandoned. So that just gives you a little feel. And it also, I think, gives you a feel for, it's not that easy to hear that. You can really delve into it more if you read it. So that's just, again, an explanation of why you might want to choose one over the other. And they are both available as ebook. In both versions. You can get the e-audio on Hoopla, and you can get it as an ebook on Libby. So you can do it either way you want. And I'm sure that there are no holds because this is a book from 2017. So Kaddish has said, has commented that any good story, no matter what the setting, should leave a reader feeling that she has been touched deeply by the lives of strangers and maybe even changed in that experience, inclined to see the world differently and more deeply. And I feel like she has really accomplished that in this book.
Sounds like it.
That's so beautiful. That's exactly why we love reading so much.
Yeah.
Why fiction is so important.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that we are there is information, if you don't know what Hoopla is, it's an app that you can get your books from. And there's information on our website at wakefieldlibrary.org that will explain to you what Hoopla is. It's very easy to use. All you need is your library card. Okay.
Yeah.
So anything?
Jeff had mentioned, and I agree, that books that are similar to this are Possession by A.S. Byatt. Again, two scholars looking at Victorian era writing. People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks, who is tracing a 15th century Haggadah through different time periods. Again, a scholar doing that. And then there's a play, Tom Stoppart's Arcadia.
Yes.
And that, again, is two parallel time periods. Scholars from now looking at a young adolescent woman who's very accomplished. She's a scholar in math and physics. I can't remember where the other things are, but so those are three different. If you like those, you'll probably like this, or if you like this, go check those out. That's The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadish.
Great.
I even love that title, actually.
I know, it's it's just great. And you really, she talks about ink in there and the weight of it. So you read at that level too, at a deeper level on that plane too.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Alyssa.
Okay, mine is very different than that, but it can also be read two ways, which I'll get into. So I am talking about Temporary by Hilary Leichter. Oops, just messed my screen up. Leichter, rather. And honestly, this is one of my favorite books of the year so far. We're not that far into it, but it's still saying something for me to say that. And I just, look at this cover.
It's cool.
It's going to be good. So Temporary is about a young woman, an unnamed narrator, just like in your book, Karen, who takes various temp jobs, all the while hoping and praying to one day attain what they call the steadiness, which is just a permanent position somewhere. So the book is divided into short chapters. Each one is named after the type of temp work she's doing. But these are not your ordinary temp jobs. So, for example, she temps as a pirate, she temps as an assassin, and she even temps as a little boy's mother for years.
Oh my God, for years?
For years. So each job assigns her a different name, which is why we don't know her actual name. And so in every chapter of the book, it's like she's assuming a completely different identity.
Oh, wow.
There are a few chapters in there where we get a look at her personal life or her past. But other than that, she's just kind of this shape shifter to whatever they need her to be. During, in my opinion, the narrator's most absurd temporary position, she actually fills in as a human barnacle attached to a rock out at sea. So in this scene, there's an interaction that really kind of sums up like the silliness of the situation, but also the author's commentary on like the absurdity of American life in relationship to nature and work. So I just want to read a little bit of that. I'm going to skip around just a little bit. So she ends up out on the rock and she says, "Who are you? Where am I?" "You're on our rock, sweetie. You've been enlisted as a human barnacle by the Wildlife Preservation Initiative, remember? My rock neighbor is an older woman with shells cluttering her hair. She notices me noticing her shells. I'm Barnacle Betty, but you can call me Joan. I'm trying to build a convincing crust." Her shells extend through her braids, down her arms, and over her sandy, pruny hands, one of which encloses my palm in a delicate, crumbling carapace. We're filling in for species on the brink of extinction, says the man next to Barnacle Betty, or rather Joan. Coastal degradation, he adds. It's the least we can do, says Barnacle Toby, who in his former life was known as Harold. The new name uses his new species as a title, as if to speak his new identity into existence. And I wonder, if he had been called Human Harold, if we were all addressed as human first, would it somehow enforce our humanity? And when we're gone, will there be anyone left to fill in? So you can see from that passage, it's like really silly, absurd, funny. It's not even a fraction of like the actual silly wordplay back and forth with characters. But underneath it all is this heavier sense of what does this kind of temporary work do to our psyche and say about us as a culture? One read-alike I couldn't get out of my head during the reading of this book was Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. So just like in Catch-22, there's tons of silly wordplay, and everything's kind of hyperbole, absurdity that makes you laugh on every page. But just like how Catch-22 satirizes kind of the grotesquerie of war, there's a hidden depth underneath the silliness here that's offering like a powerful critique on capitalism, essentially. So I think there's two ways to read this book. The first way to read it, and it's kind of what I did because it's what I needed, was to stay on the surface of the book. Just kind of giggle, let yourself laugh at her amazingly creative mind and her hilarious dialogue and bizarro scenarios. But if you prefer to go the deeper route, if that's what you're feeling, you can definitely focus on Leichter's opinions on modern American work culture and, this like massive societal pressure to have a career, to make money, as if that is what gives you dignity and not just being a human being, which should be enough. So yeah, though I'm getting a little serious about it, I really want to say, like, I laughed. It was the only thing making me smile in the past week, honestly. It offers us like an insight into like the invisible jobs of our country. It's also a world very unlike ours, clearly, like where humans are barnacles, but at the same time, it really resonates with our actual reality on this like subconscious level. But yeah, it's completely hilarious. If you want to escape the horror of our actual reality right now, highly recommended. I think it's for all general readers, but especially for people who like double meanings and like puns and wordplay. I would say it's a really good one.
Wow.
Oh, and it's available on Hoopla as well. So no holds, no wait. Definitely just get onto Hoopla and check it out. Trust me.
Yeah, Hoopla is absolutely your friend. Great place to browse, great place to find all these things that we're recommending. So, and all available immediately.
I thought maybe a read-alike for yours, Alyssa, would be the David Leviathan one, Every Day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the humor. I mean, but it's about a person who keeps on changing every single day. I keep on saying he, it's not a he, but every day changes their person. So
yes,
in that way, it's the same, temporary, but it's not the humor that this one has.
Right, but it is similar in the sense that by taking on these different identities, we're getting a much larger picture of society as a whole.
Absolutely.
It's so much more, it's so much less about the individuals than about the entire picture, which is, I think, similar to that book. Yeah, definitely. But this one, way funnier. A little less, but yeah, similar.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any other quick mentions they want to put out there? The things they've read, things they've seen. There's a lot of stuff going on our social media right now. both Facebook and Instagram have lots of suggestions. We've put out comfort reads and comfort watches, and our books that we're reading, stacks of books that we're reading right now. So there's all kinds of things that you can find if you need some suggestions for where to go. And we will be back probably more frequently. We may be doing these more like twice a month instead of once a month. So we'll be back again fairly soon with Beebe Book Buzz. And we hope that you will again look for all of our programming on our YouTube channel and on our website. That's wakefieldlibrary.org is the website, and Beebe Library is what you search for when you're looking on YouTube. That's B-E-B-E Library, all one word, because a lot of people don't know how to spell Beebe. So we look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Look out also for our Beebe Flicks, which is coming with Jeff and
Bridget.
Bridget, thank you. Blank mind. Jeff and Bridget will be doing some stuff on movies as well coming up, so look out for that. But until next time, this has been Beebe Book Buzz. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.